Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our long-running series, The Unported Playlist, where I take a look at my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today I've got Spiker's Battle from Sega running on the NAOMI from 2001. If you haven't watched the previous videos in my unported playlist series, I've talked about SpikeOut and SlashOut, two awesome 3D beat-em-up games, where Spiker's Battle is kind of using the same engine and mechanics, but turning it into a 4-player versus fighting game. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But as you can see right here, if you've never played SpikeOut or SlashOut, this is a 3D beat 'em up, but they've taken that mechanic and turned it into a Power Stone style 4-player battle royale. And I am playing 1 player against 3 CPU opponents, which can definitely be a lot harder of a version of the game to play, because the 3 opponents you're facing will never attack each other. It is you versus 3 people. This game definitely comes more alive when you have friends to play with, and you can do 2 players on 1 instance of a NAOMI setup. But as a single player game, it is still an absolute ton of fun. Because SpikeOut was such a great game, this game, using the same mechanics and same engine, has the same ability to be that good. I love the combos, the attacks, the different charge ups and special attacks that you have for each character. It's just a lot of fun. Now, I will give you a word of quote-unquote warning. There are weapons in this game, and I don't know what's going on with them, but picking them up is the most difficult thing you're going to do in the entire experience. I don't know why, but you basically have to be on top of them perfectly. But honestly, the hand-to-hand combat is my preferred version of this game anyway, so I basically ignore the weapons completely. But I love the environments as well. They're so unique and different. Now, they are borrowing assets from the previous games, but it still works. And you'll see here, you can knock your opponent right through this glass and continue to fight on the outside of this Chinese restaurant. It just has all of this open availability to move around and navigate the environments as you see fit. But basically what you need to do to be successful if you're playing this as a 1-player game is to isolate one of your opponents and get them away from the pack. Because these opponents will attack you from behind on occasion. They're still using the Kung Fu movie set of fighting rules, which is wait your turn, but every once in a while they get a little impatient and decide it is time to fight you as well. Each time you kill an enemy, you either get a little bit of a life up, or you get another special attack charge. The life ups definitely help a lot, because on a 3 versus 1 setup, you're going to be taking a lot of damage all across the board. But this game has a ton of characters as well, with all unique movesets, so you basically get to pick who works for you. You have a punch, a kick, and a grapple, as well as that charge shot. Now, this game isn't as frantic as something like Power Stone, and all of the tiers on the arenas are just single. You're not going to be jumping up or down or getting knocked into different play fields. I do wish they had gone a little bit heavier on that, but I understand they wanted to just go with that single tier of gameplay. But it definitely works, and it's a ton of fun, and it's a game that I rarely if ever hear anyone mention as far as Sega arcade games are concerned. It did come out within the lifespan of the Dreamcast, and I did read in a few magazines back in the day that this was supposed to come home, but it just never ended up happening. It was towards the end of that lifespan. Sega probably canceled it. But let's move on to the next stage here, Sky Arena. They're just such fun environments, and the NAOMI being slightly more powerful than Dreamcast. I love that all of the buildings in the backgrounds are 3D polygonal models. They don't seem to be 2D assets. Of course, they're very basic, but it's always fun to get all of that 3D in the background. And I love that you can see through the glass on the stage to the area below you. It's such a nice little detail graphically. I will say some of the faces on the models can be a little bit rough or unhuman-like, but it still is a pretty game. But again, it's the combat that we're here for, and the combat works so well. I love all the combos, the juggles, and other things you can do. And because, of course, it's Sega, it also has a really good musical soundtrack as well as sound effects. So go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds or so, and I'll come back and talk more about the history of SlashOut, SpikeOut, and SpikeOut Battle. But enjoy this music because it is great. Soundtrack is just awesome like all Sega soundtracks are, but I really appreciate the fact that the audio was well balanced in this game. The music, the sound effects, the character voices all come through and you can all hear each sample without one getting too far on top of the other as far as loudness is concerned, because sometimes in arcade games the musical soundtrack underneath is too quiet and the sound effects basically drowned it out, so I do appreciate that. But now that we're on to the 4th stage, suddenly this game's going to become much harder. The first 3 stages, I wouldn't call them easy, but you're going to get through them relatively quickly. Once you get to stage 4 on as a single player experience, it's going to get a lot harder because the enemy AI is going to be more aggressive and you're going to have to worry about attacks coming from both angles. You can quickly pivot and attack the opponent behind you, but you need to be quick on the joystick and buttons because if they start hitting you, you're going to get staggered and you're going to end up in trouble like I am here. And that's the thing about Spiker's Battle. If you get in trouble, trying to claw back from it is difficult. You get that small health up right there, but that's still not enough for me to be able to get this round 1. Sometimes you get that white health up, and sometimes you get the red one, which restores about 50% of your life bar. But the name of the game on round 4 forward is you need to start removing opponents from the arena. You're not going to be able to fight all 3 at once. Even fighting 2 at once is going to be difficult. So you need to get one character far enough away from the pack so you can get some good hits in. The only way that Lisa there was able to get off the railing is to use a special attack, and they have them as well as you, but they don't use them all that often. Only when you really trap them will they think about doing it. And I won that bout with a timeout, which is sometimes just how it goes in this game. Backing up and running those last few seconds out is a strategy for sure. But moving on to this downtown area, I just love the background, all of this neon going on, all of the different details. It makes you want to look away from the fight and actually see what's going on in the game world. That's not a good idea because you're definitely going to get tagged right in the jaw if you do that, but honestly it happens every once in a while. And this game does look different than the games that preceded it because those ran on the Model 3 hardware, where this runs on the NAOMI, or at least SpikeOut Final Edition was a Model 3 game, and that game, if you've never played it, is spectacular as well. But it's a fun pivot to take a beat-em-up game and turn it more into a 3D versus fighting game. But again, this is the type of game, if you even have one friend you can play with against 2 CPU opponents, suddenly it changes completely. Because it is interesting that they programmed the 3 opponents never to attack one another. There may be some friendly fire hits now and again, but they're never going to turn and face each other and actually engage in combat. So really this ends up being an even harder one-player game, and I kind of like that. It's not something you can just breeze through or just pumping in virtual credits to try to see the ending of it. You really do need to get great at the game, learn those combos, learn those grapples, and understand when to dash and move to make sure you're not getting caught up from another enemy. Because once you have 3 opponents around you and they start juggling you, you're as good as dead in the later rounds in this game. And once you get to Imperial Opera, it just becomes absurdly hard. I have seen the end of this game before, and if you want to practice and learn how to do it, you can too, but trust me, once you get to this area, all bets are off because the game is going to become absurdly hard. You're going to have opponents throwing weapons from across the screen at you, which is going to stagger you enough for everyone else to gang up. This is when the 3 versus 1 aspect gets a little bit overwhelming, but you just need to practice. You need to read your opponents and understand that screen space, because getting stuck in a corner like this is not what you want to do. You can see that I'm immediately just getting pummeled there, and I am running out of health very quickly. You constantly need to be on the move in this game. You'll see here, if I just lead that one enemy, I was able to basically get him eliminated, but I had taken too much damage before that. So that's what you need to focus on in later stages, and sometimes they're just going to grab a flamethrower and absolutely decimate you with it. Sometimes the game feels slightly unfair, but if you bring a friend, it's basically going to be an even match. But Spiker's Battle is a ton of fun. I absolutely love the game, and I love that they took the SpikeOut formula and engine engine and turned it into a Power Stone-esque 3D fighting game. It's definitely like a B+ tier effort from Sega, but it never got a home port. It should have 100% come to the Dreamcast. There is a version of this game, completely different, with a similar name on the Xbox, and it is not very good whatsoever. So honestly, unfortunately, the one game that came to consoles in this series is the worst of the entire run. But short of that, leave me a comment down below. Tell me if you ever played this game or if you plan on playing it after this. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.